Hey everybody, happy Saturday. I keep recording this. This has probably been the longest taking video I have yet to make, but I am using a different phone. So I'm using my husband's phone. So hopefully the sound is better and the quality. He has a newer one than I do. And this is a really timely, a timely time. You know what I mean? It's time. I want to have a better quality because of the topic that we're going to be talking about today. And it's kind of part of why I've been re-recording this, because obviously in these videos, there is definitely a balance of being relatable, being honest, being real, but then maybe not coming across as maybe a little too triggered or too aggressive. And I think I was kind of muting my emotions a little bit on this topic, which every time I watched it or get partially through, I was like, man, that just sounds so disingenuous. And so I'm just going to be honest, guys. I'm going to share my emotions in this one and just be really super real. So we are going to be jumping into depression. And this is a heavy topic, obviously. And I think it's really timely right now. This is shout out to a friend who I had a great conversation with this week, he was really honest. He was really open about his struggles with experiencing anxiety and depression, and then of course tied into spirituality, because that's what we talk about. That's what we were talking about. So it was really just about spirituality. And the reason I get really feisty about this is because I have a lot of passion about depression. And obviously, okay, let's just jump into it. Stigma. Oh my God, people, can we finally live in a society where we get past the stigma of depression? We all deal with it. And if you haven't dealt with it yet, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, and I hate to speak ill over you, but you will eventually deal with it. It's just part of life, because here's the truth. Depression is it's a way that our internal systems, which of course for me is a spiritual connection. So our internal systems, it's the way it starts shouting out at us to tell us that something's off and something needs to be addressed. And now, of course, I'm doing a simplified conversation about this, but there's a lot of reasons. So I truly believe that we're all here for a purpose. Okay. I think that we are all here to contribute. I really believe that part of our journeys, and it doesn't have to be crazy. It's not like we all need to be Oprah or necessarily these influencers, on a large scale, but we all have a purpose, even if it's a small scale, I don't know how you would compare small or large, but maybe a smaller influence of, like, even say one person. We're here, you were here to impact that one person. I don't know, but we all play really important roles within this world. And I think a lot of us, because we live in a society, in a world where we really think our way through everything and plan it, sometimes we get really disconnected from what that purpose is going to be. Now, I'm not saying that we all need to sit down and go, oh my God, what's my life purpose? Let's figure everything out. And if I don't feel like this is my life purpose, change everything. That's not what I'm saying. But I really think what I'm saying is that we all have divine guidance within where our life is supposed to go, and certain things we're supposed to do. And I truly believe that depression is the way in which our entire system and our soul, the universe, if you are a Christian, God, I truly believe that is how we are being stopped. Because if you've really dealt with depression, you understand you don't have the capacity to get help. Okay. I think that is something that people really need to understand. First of all. And I know eventually people get to the point where they can ask for help, but part of the process and the experience of feeling depressed is that you can't think your way out of it. You know what I mean? And I think, this is to people, maybe if you haven't experienced it in depth yet, to just as a education piece for you to understand, it's not as simple if you're in depression just to reach out and ask for help, or to reach out and find a counselor, or to start changing behaviors in your life. Because the thing is that we all know. We all know. But the problem is that when you're in depression, it's like you have overwhelming emotions that you cannot process. And so you literally live a disconnect. There's two planes of perception, okay? Mental and emotional. And what happens is that you become disconnected, where those are two separate functioning entities, and your emotional is so strong, but then you also are mentally aware of it. So you're mentally like, why don't I just get help? Why don't I go do these things? Why don't I? You know, the answers that you would say to somebody when, you know, to somebody in depression, it's the exact same when you're in it. You understand it, you get it. But then the emotions, they've put a stop on everything. And that is actually part of the biggest struggle, in my opinion, of depression, because you hit such an insane, deep shame cycle and a tunnel where you just get sucked down because you're like, I know how to get through this. Why am I not doing it? And you are so ashamed that you're not good enough. You're too weak to go do these things that you know you should just do. And that is the truth of it. And a lot of people, when they're in it, they don't have capacity. Like, even if you were surrounded by a million people who are like, reach out to me when you're here, you just honestly, it is one of the hardest things to do to be able to actually reach out. And obviously, you know, total little disclaimer there, you know, if people are feeling suicidal, I know it's the hardest thing, but please do reach out, because everybody who has been on the other side of that knows it's a really tragic thing. And there's always people who wish they could be there to support you. So I'm not talking about when we get to that deep of a level. But you know, because I'm really focusing on that lead up of getting to that level, where it is that space of just really being so disconnected and so emotionally unable to move through anything. And my opinion is that, and it's easy to say when you're not in it at the exact moment, but it really is these blocks. It's this really frustrating spiritual block that happens where you're being stopped because something is off. You know, you are being crippled because there is something that is going on that needs to be addressed. And from a spiritual level, I really do truly believe that you're being blocked because of the fact that in order for you to really move forward in your life path that you're supposed to be moving forward in, something's off and it's preventing you from getting there. And I know that that's a frustrating thing to say, but it really is true. And that's different for everybody, okay? Sometimes that is maybe you have emotional wounds that haven't been healed, right? I know suicide is a really growing, the numbers for suicide are growing with soldiers, which obviously means that there is depression that's happening right there. So there's a lot of things that are happening there, right? Like mental and emotional wounds that need healing, and they need support, and they need love. And for people, maybe just everyday people, you know, you have emotional traumas from your past that need addressing, or maybe you are in a job that is just sucking your soul, and it's like you're frustrated because you mentally are like, why can't I just do X, Y, and Z and move forward? You know, because it's amazing what happens when you continually get blocked and you don't listen to that block. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So like, oftentimes in our life, we have our intuition that starts coming in and saying, you know, I don't really like this. Something's off here, or I need to address this, but we ignore it, right? It's so easy when that voice is just kind of quiet, and especially when we're disconnected from that inner voice, you know, and we ignore it, and we continually ignore it, and we continually ignore it. And the more we ignore it, the more disconnected we get from that inner voice. But the thing is, friends, I was about to call everyone honeys, friends, is that inner voice is really our guidance system. And that inner voice, the more you ignore it, it will eventually have a tantrum and scream, and it will start to play out in different ways, because that inner voice literally is telling us certain things that we need to like it's guiding our life. I actually always joke with friends that the people who have, you know, the kind of the quote unquote horseshoes up their ass, you know, we all have those friends where it's just like everything seems to always work out. My opinion and my experience is because those people, they listen to their intuition and they're unapologetic about it. And, you know, we're going to dive more deeply into intuition, but I really want to talk about this specifically with depression, because I find a lot of the times people who are very spiritual, really, they get into different cycles. It could be like it's almost like in a lot of spiritual communities, what I'm trying to spit out is that it's actually considered a negative. Like it's actually kind of looked down upon still in some spiritual communities. And I find that really frustrating, because I think that depression is one of the most intense ways that spirit can tell us something is off in our life, and that it's time to be quiet, to quiet our lives, and to figure out what that is and how we can move through it. And obviously that is action that I'm talking about. But friends, you will deal with depression over and over and over again until you are able to change internally whatever it is out of whack. And I am a strong believer that professional help is huge within that. So yes, spiritualism is really important in my opinion. Of course, obviously guys, I'm here talking about spirituality. But I think it's a balance, it's not a one thing fixes all. Like even me sitting here saying like, find what's off and fix it. Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously, like that's pretty easy, but it is really a bit of an exploration, where it's utilizing as many things as you can in order to heal yourself. So if you think about it like or you get an injury, okay, what do? You go to a physiotherapist, like a physical injury. You go to a physical therapist, they give you exercises, you do that, and then you utilize like chiropractic, osteopath, massage, and you use those things to help you along your journey of being able to heal. Right? And although you're using all those multiple tools, it's in order to help that specific injury heal. And you going in, you might not even know what it is, right? Like you might have a bad back, but then it turns out you hurt your foot, right? And obviously could be, whatever, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you don't necessarily even know the problem, but it's like you work with the professionals and you get a team of care that helps you move through these things. But unfortunately, when it comes to mental health, we don't think of it the same way. But what I think of it is like, I literally think of it as if you are dealing with depression and you're facing it, first of all, it's good, guys. You're good. It is normal. And I know it doesn't feel like that. I know it feels isolating. I get it. I've been there. Okay. I get it. But even if you don't emotionally connect with that, just keep telling yourself that, and then understand and look at it the same way of your injuries. I mean, oh, this is good. Like, when you even like back to my example, sorry, this is like, my guides are literally like saying I need to do this example. So it might sound jumpy, but when I was talking about like how you might hurt yourself physically, it's the same thing a lot. Oftentimes when you get severe injuries, and I'm not talking about getting an accident, but oftentimes like you do have these small pains and you're like, oh, that feels kind of off. Oh, that feels kind of off. And then you ignore it until it becomes like a big issue that suddenly you can't even walk anymore because something happened. And, but it all came down to that tiny little pain that was kind of telling you that something was off. That's the same thing with our intuition. Okay. So when you are dealing with depression, it's the exact same thing, that your emotional self has had so many tiny little things that have been off until they have accumulated to cause a serious injury that is preventing you from moving forward, okay? So if we can start looking at depression as an emotional injury the same we would as a physical injury, and understand that it doesn't create weakness, it doesn't mean we're weak people, it doesn't mean that we are less than. What it means is that we just have an emotional injury. And just similar to what I talked about, then we find and we go to a professional. It's fighting to find a good psychologist and counselor and that's another piece, is that if you guys reach out to a counselor and you don't like them, find a new one, okay? Be unapologetic about it, because it's about finding someone who's a fit, who's aligned with your values, and especially your spiritual values. Because if you are, say, very religious, or not religious, you hate religion, let's say, and then you go to, say, a strongly Catholic counselor, probably not a good fit, right? It might be, but I'm just, as an example. But it's having that core person who can actually support you and start identifying and figuring out what it is, and then using other sources of help to shift those things emotionally. So let's say energy healers or mediums, right? Like in my case, obviously that's what I focus in, is really helping people along this journey of their own personal healing that they're doing. It's shifting these things to help them emotionally start to heal. Maybe that is having some physical, like a massage to help you relax. Maybe that is exercise, whatever, I know when you hear those things of going for a walk in the park, but like those aren't solutions to depression. Those are things to help you along your healing journey. But essentially it's like physiotherapy, right? If you don't do your exercises and you don't do the work, then it's that injury is going to continue. And so it is really allowing ourselves to get to the point where we can get that emotional healing, right? And if you are in the place right now where you can't even move through your depression and you're just completely crippled, stop judging yourself. And I say that strongly, as strong as that, because I understand how hard it is. And I want to say that directly because, like my back injury that I just had, I couldn't move, guys. I was physically unable to move pretty much for like a week. So I look at that similarly to depression, right? When you are at that place where that emotional wound is so intense, you emotionally cannot move anymore. You are stuck. It's stopping you. And so if you can just let yourself be in that, and like I felt useless with my back. Okay, I'll just own it. I did. So emotionally useless. Let's say you feel like that, because I think that's real. A lot of times when we're in depression, we feel emotionally useless. Then like just understand that you just need that time to kind of like to come back to yourself and connect with yourself. And then, but eventually you do have to take those steps. It's give yourself a little bit to reshape, and then have the courage and the compassion for yourself to actually reach out and start getting the professional help that you need, and talking to your friends and talking to our family, and start shifting the mindset of your emotional wounds to be equivalent in terms of like, how we would talk about a physical injury, right? Emotional injury, a physical injury. They're the exact same things. They actually play out very similarly in our body, right? And in our responses. And so why would our treatment and our responses to those be any different? And so, I hope that made sense, guys. I know I'm kind of like getting really emotional about like really strongly speaking about it, but that's because I think when it comes to depression, too many people get stuck here. Too many people feel isolated and alone, and too many suffer, and obviously the extreme suffering is leading to suicide. And I know this touches so many people, myself included. And the more we can talk about it, which is incredible what's happening nowadays, I think the more that we can move through it. And let's just understand it is nothing more than an emotional injury. And it's just our spirit, it's our self, our internal guiding post telling us that there is an emotional injury that is time to heal and to move through. So, have strength in that, because you absolutely 100% can do it. I know it seems impossible, but there really are solutions. And I hope that, that take that for what it is worth, and sending you guys all a lot of love. Have a great week, guys.